Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for this webinar all about our latest feature, Signals. I'm Jasmine and I'll be your host for today. For those of you who don't know, we're Brandwatch. We're a social enterprise listening and analytics platform. So we have two products, Brandwatch Analytics, that's our flagship analytics platform, and then Brandwatch Visio, which is our sort of command center data visualization type product. Signals is our latest feature in Brandwatch Analytics, so it's available to all of our users. So I'm just going to intro you to our speakers today, and then we're going to talk a bit about our vision and the problems we were trying to solve with Signals, then talk a bit about what Signals actually does and the use cases, and then we've got a guest to talk about how they're using Signals, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. So please do get involved. You can ask sessions in the chat box on GoToWebinar. You could also tweet us and our guests BBH and use the hashtag BrandwatchTips, and we'll answer your questions in the Q&A at the end. We'll be recording this webinar and we'll send out the recording and the presentation within a few days if you want to listen again or share with others. So our speakers today, we've got Glenn White.
Hello, my name is Glenn. I head up product strategy at Brandwatch, so I work across all our products, but I was heavily involved in Signals during its development.
And we've also got Saskia Jones.
Hi, I look after digital analytics for BBH, skewing more towards the social side of things, so making sure that social listening and social data in general kind of fuels and improves our social offering.
Great, so over to Glenn, who's going to talk a bit about our vision.
Sure, so I wanted to talk about Brandwatch's kind of vision and the trends we see, because I think those will help explain and frame kind of why we worked on Signals. So I kind of put it into these four main areas for us at the moment. We see a trend towards data sources and bringing those different streams of data together. So we predominantly work in social, but there's other data sources that are important to all of us for making decisions, and how you combine those things and bring them together starts becoming more and more important. Your access to that data is something that we really care about, and that's why we strive so much of what we do to bring social data to people, and maybe in the future helping them bring other types of data together as well. But what we also see is a trend towards visualizing that data, which is why we built Visio, because as good as data is, if it's stuck in just on the analyst desk, and stuck with a few people in the organization, it means it can't have the impact and be as powerful as it can be when everyone has access to it. So we really believe in helping share that information across organizations. So bringing that data together, giving you the insight and helping share it, and that's a big trend we see going forward, and more ways that we can make it easier to access that data across the enterprise. And we also see a big trend towards the visual web. So Instagram, Pinterest, obviously, but even the traditional networks like Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr have taken a huge step forward in terms of imagery. And it's kind of a thing I see for us going beyond those keywords. So at the moment there's a lot of keyword listening tools out there, but going beyond that, because there's all kinds of other pieces of information, such as images, that have all kinds of data and insight that we can pull out from them that aren't just in the text around it. I don't entirely know what we'll do with that, but I think there's something really important about the visual side of the web. And finally, as a sort of quote from hockey player Wayne Gretzky, talking about skating where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is. And I see there's a metaphor that's important in everything we're doing in terms of thinking about the future of what people are going to want, not just what they're asking for right now, but that's kind of a big reason for working on something like Signals, because it helps answer that question, but also because it is helping our customers understand where the puck is going to be, not where it is at the moment. So the problem that we identified, I kind of break it down into kind of three key areas. I see the three areas for Signals as how can I know what's happening right now, and how can I know before everyone else what that is, and how can I predict the unpredictable. Those are kind of three questions that I've had come from a lot of clients. I wanted to kind of resolve that and come up with a solution that would make those problems go away for people, because there are kind of products out there that will alert you based on what you've already set up, what you already know is going to happen. There aren't many things that help you uncover what you didn't know was going to happen. So that was the real issue, the real thing we wanted to solve with Signals, the real area that we focused on. So Signals itself, we launched this a couple of weeks ago, and a few clients have had it in early access before that. We wanted to build something that lets people know what's happening before anyone else. So Signals is about real-time automated intelligence. So it's based on the queries that you've set up in the platform, and it pulls insight out of that. So what it does is it looks at a mention. So take a tweet, for example. It would take a tweet and it would look at who posted it, when they posted it, where they posted it, what was the sentiment, the hashtags, the links, is there anything in there, what are the interesting facets of this piece of conversation, and then compares it to all the other conversation going on at the same time. So we can really understand, is this part of a trend, is this mention important in its own right, is this interesting? And being able to kind of understand all of that millions of pieces of information in real time is really important to us. And then what we do is we deliver that to you as an email that's easy to understand, that's fast, so that if something is, a crisis is happening, you get the information as quickly as possible so you can act on it. And that's really important to us, because we found that the speed of this information was almost just as important as the insight it was bringing. And I want to try and talk a little bit about the journey and show you a little bit of what the product looks like. Because I think talking about the journey of how we got there kind of gives you an idea of how difficult this is a problem to solve, but also the approach that we've taken to it and why we've taken this particular approach to it. So we started probably the best part of 2 years ago working on this product, because it's a difficult problem to solve for a lot of reasons. One, because the sheer volume of data, but also how do you represent that? How do you make that easy to understand? How do you bring that insight and actually find the needles in the haystacks and not just present everything that looks vaguely interesting? And so we started with a kind of stream like this, but we found that we had a few problems. One, I mean, this was back when the system could only handle a few hundred conversations at any time, so not enough to handle the millions that we now have in the system, but also the millions it needed to kind of process for insight. But also the trends and things of interest don't necessarily happen linearly. You know, trends grow and shrink, and things of interest bubble up and they bubble down. They don't happen in a linear conversation way, like a tweet kind of stream like this might have looked before. So we wanted to explore other options. So another prototype we looked at was this kind of bubble interface where bubbles would grow and shrink over time based on the trends and would animate and move based on what's happening. But it was hard at a glance to get a real understanding of what the things you should care about right now were. There's all kinds of problems of trying to represent all of that in a visual metaphor like this. And we started realizing that perhaps we didn't need to. Perhaps that isn't something that we need to solve right now. What's actually really important is bringing this insight to people in real-time speed. So we developed an email system, which looks a little something like this. This is an example of a trending hashtag email that you could send, and we cover a variety of different social insights. And what this tells you then is what's going on with that hashtag right now, why we think this is interesting, because in this case it's trended up way quicker than anything else in the last 30 minutes, give you some sample of the conversations happening, and then you can decide to act on that. You can decide to dive into it, you can decide not to. And those emails can be sent to anyone, whether they're a Brandwatch user or not. But it's really about that speed as well. So you don't have to log into Brandwatch to access this information. You can send it even to people in the company that don't have a login. It really reduces that barrier to insight. And that was something that was really important to us when developing this. And as an example, this is a kind of dashboard that you can then dive into to better understand it. So here we have minute-by-minute charting. So you can, once you see a signal develop, you can then dive right into it, find out what's going on, see, okay, this really peaked in the last 5 minutes, or has this been bubbling along for a while now and is now just starting to peak, and really start to dive into that rich data and understand why this might be interesting. But what was also important is we wanted to make this easy to set up, easy to use. So this is the only piece of interface you need to get set up. It's really simple. It's almost one click. You'll choose a data source, a query in Brandwatch. So I've chosen here Brandwatch as the query because I care about knowing what people say about Brandwatch. And then you can select who you want those emails to get sent to and the level of priority. So in this particular example, I'm sending only the high priority signals to Jasmine, which means only things that we think are highly interesting or big issues get sent through to her, whereas I'm sending everything through to our kind of marketing team, maybe the community manager team. So what that allows you to do is mean that maybe the CEO of the company gets alerted via Signals to major events that are happening, and he's getting a heads up on it that he would never have normally got, way more ahead of time. But maybe your community management team need to know every little thing that could spark into something. So what Signals also does is brings you those small micro trends, those things that might tip, those things that might go any moment, and means you can look into each of them and analyze them, decide whether you care about them or not, and whether you want to know more about them or not. And that was really important to us, of developing something that could really understand and predict those things. And when we look at the use cases, I think it kind of breaks into these kind of three main ones for us. So I've been talking about this PR use case, this crisis use case. And that's a big part of what I see of this, is that we can detect crises, we can find things before they've gotten big, before they've gone major. And you know, Brandwatch has an alerting system currently, and so do other products out there, and those things rely on you knowing ahead of time what the issue might be. So you're a broadband company, you might predict that there's going to be some downtime, you might put in a bunch of keywords around crashes or no service, no network, and you might get alerted to that. But what you might not have predicted was a flood or a hurricane in somewhere which takes down a bunch of your infrastructure. But with Signals, it doesn't really matter, because it's not about a keyword. It's not about you telling it, here are the keywords I care about. You're saying, I care about this brand, I care about this industry, and Signals is then telling you what interesting things are happening within that as they happen. So it's also good for community managers, because they can use this to tap into insight and things that start to bubble up for their brand and for their industry, without them having to constantly be monitoring a dashboard. It's kind of bringing that stuff to them, so you can have those Oreo moments more often. You can find that piece of insight, you can find that trend that's just starting, the dress moment, whatever it is, and jump on it before everyone else. And that kind of first mover advantage is really important in this space, because being first or second can make a huge difference in the amount of clicks, the amount of response you get to what you do. So speed is really important. And finally, something that I think can't really be underplayed enough is the security and threat management side of things. It's, you know, in community management, maybe in crisis, you know, knowing everything is really useful. Sometimes it's nice to have, but in security, it's imperative. You can't miss a security threat. It can be catastrophic. And we've already had a few clients who have been using Signals, and they've been alerted really, really earlier, you know, half an hour earlier than they would have been alerted by other traditional means. And you know, they've had to set up huge kind of systems internally to monitor every potential outcome that could happen to get those previous alerts they were setting up. Whereas Signals didn't have to do any of that, and they were getting these things even earlier than before, which is something I think is really sort of game-changing in this space. For without you having to say, here's the whole possibility space, this is giving you that insight. So now I'm going to pass over to Saskia to take you through a couple of examples they've seen and things they want to do with Signals already.
Hi. So I think the main things, as we've discussed, is really using it for one of two ways, and I will discuss briefly both of them. It's how do we cleverly use insights to generate more content or broaden our reach. And I think KFC, one of our new clients, BB8, it's obviously a big brand. There are a lot of mentions every day. And when we're talking about what's happening outside of our own community, when we've got community managers looking at that almost 24/7, we were trying to work out a way of how we would cleverly be able to find those Oreo moments. And I think Signals has been really helpful at that, because I think this example here is showing how an influencer was trending. And I think going after influencers is nothing new, but I think it's actually about having, this picks up the resonance of it. So how much of an impact is it having really, really early on? So instead of your content being an afterthought, it's organically part of the existing conversation. And this is one that we picked up. Obviously, it isn't at mentioning us. It was gaining a lot of traction. And so we simply, rather than spending a lot of time generating creative content, we simply replied. And actually, because these people have almost 6.5 million followers, that simple tweet created an ongoing conversation with various people who were taking part in the conversation, and actually generated one of the most retweeted and engaged tweets that KFC have ever seen. So that was a really successful way of using Signals to broaden our reach outside of our own community. And then if we go on to the next slide, and then an early warning of sentiment shift. So again, this kind of goes on to the crisis management side of things, which again, you can't really pick up on too early. This is something that we've seen for KFC, both positive shifts and negative shifts. So positive shifts are really useful for us so that we understand when we're proactively putting out our content, what is going to catch the engagement and catch the eye of everyone who's talking about KFC. So for example, we know that their gravy is very popular. We've got a lot of stored content around that subject, but we want to know when is the best time to be talking about it. And obviously the best time to be talking about it is when it's starting to catch engagement and spark that conversation. Equally, negative shifts in conversation are arguably even more important. So we had an issue with one of our stores that was very prevalent on one of our own channels, but Signals picked it up when it started to spread outside of our own channels, so that we could speak directly to the PR team, both in KFC and their external PR team, so that we could understand and manage that situation. And what that actually resulted in is this negative shift in sentiment was very short-lived, and it meant that we could catch it very early on, put out exactly the right PR messaging, and then be able to monitor it, and we understood what it was we should be monitoring. And we absolutely couldn't have done that without Signals, because that was that early warning system without an analyst having to sift through the thousands of mentions there are every single day. So that was very useful. And then if we go on to the next slide, and again, I don't know if anyone has been watching it, but obviously we've been having our $1 billion chicken shop that has been on BBC One every Wednesday for the last 3 weeks. It is the type of program and the type of brand that can sometimes be quite controversial. And again, we had created this content to preempt the type of things that people were talking about. What was really, really useful in terms of Signals was we had a war room set up. And again, instead of sifting through all these thousands of conversations, I think twice this hashtag was trending, so you can imagine the volumes that we were looking at. It was able to pick up on the nuances before they took hold. And as we've gone through, you can then log into the Signals dashboard and understand, was this short-lived? Is this still gaining traction? Is this something that we need to act upon? And as a result, we were able to quickly generate this creative around several different, both positive and negative themes that were coming up, so that we could kind of engage with these people and try and negate some of the negativity that was around some of the topics and amplify some of the positivity that was coming through as a result. So in terms of that quick turnaround, that war room type of situation, it was totally invaluable. And in terms of Signals, KFC is obviously one of the snapshots that we've been looking at, but we're looking to roll it out across a lot of our brands, particularly those that have high volumes, so that instead of having to sift through, we are able to pick up those moments, both in terms of content creation and crisis management. And that is it for me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Saskia. So just a sort of small note from me on the kind of future. So we've just launched Signals a few weeks ago. We have a whole team dedicated to building this out. So what we want to be adding for the future is adding even more intelligence to it, adding more data to it, adding more ways of accessing that information as well. So going beyond the email, making the mobile side of things easier to access, various other things that we're going to be improving over time. But for now, what we have is something really special, and I think there's really something in here that can make a big difference to people. So for right now, what we're asking for from our customers, from our users, from anyone that is a Brandwatch client, is just give us your feedback. That's kind of the payment we want right now, is tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you'd like it to see do more of, tell us what you wanted to do, maybe do less of, did it miss anything, and bring those great stories. You know, we've had a lot of clients already come to us with amazing stories already of things they've uncovered from this, or catastrophes they've avoided from Signals. So those stories are really powerful for us because it helps us understand how we can help other people realize that's the type of thing, and how we can keep improving what we do. So do bring that to us, you know, via all the channels mentioned earlier, or kind of email any of us, and you'll be helping make Brandwatch and Brandwatch Signals even better. And as a note, go to our website if you want to find out more about this. So if you are a client, you can go to the alert section of Brandwatch and you can use this feature right away. And if you're not, you can go to the website and find out more about Signals itself. There's a great video that the team put together that gives you the kind of feeling, the emotion that we wanted to get across the Signals, but also you can request a demo and find out more about everything else that we do as well.